Hi traders, it is Wednesday the 28th of July 2021, and what I want to do in this video is just talk through, I'm going to do some technical analysis on Bitcoin and why it's now sitting on both my trading watch list or day trading watch list and potentially in terms of investing, in terms of adding to it, in terms of in the portfolio. Really just going to have a look at the charts, take you through what it is that traders are looking for, what the potential behavior is now, where the risks lie, and how I'm going to approach it. And so that at least by the end of this video, you've got a good sense of kind of what we look for, what are the signs that it's stabilizing or potentially starting to recover, starting a new growth phase, or potentially what are the warning signs that it's still struggling, and then potentially and how it's going to lead a lot of the other cryptos. So both Bitcoin and Ethereum have, it's similar to the global indices where we look at the S&P out of the US, the Dow, the NASDAQ, to give us a good clue as to where the global economies are going, because they tend to lead the other indices. It's the same with Bitcoin and Ethereum. They do tend to lead the other cryptos. Okay, in case you weren't aware of that. So let's go ahead and have a look at it on the chart at the moment. And so first of all, let's talk about the daily. Okay, so I've highlighted, if you've seen any of my other videos, I tend to highlight ranges with kind of an orange box. We are still stuck within a range. Now, the danger of a range for newer traders is that no matter how strong it looks this time that it's approaching that key level, there is still a very real possibility that it could fail to break out. All right, so often what happens is the longer the move all the way from one level to another without taking a break, the less likely it's going to have enough energy to break to that level. But it does, what's important to take away from this is the speed at which it moved from the bottom all the way up. So I had been mentioning in previous analysis how we had the buyers push back here. We've got these rejections of the lows. Again, here price comes down, tries to break outside the range, gets pushed back in. Here it gets pushed back in, but not able to go all the way back up to the top because, in other words, at this point, there just weren't enough buyers to be able to carry it out. This time, though, what's different, it started to close near the lows, which actually is a sign of kind of weakness. However, and it did manage to close out down below that. Buyers came back in, pushed it up, and this time, pushed it all the way back up to the other side. So it's different this time. It is different. And yes, there is a possibility it could break out, but the rule for me is not until it breaks out. So I want to talk about the range because the range is really a limitation. Until it gets out of that range, it's not really viable. And so there are a couple of ways in which this could happen. It could break out the range, head all the way up to the older highs. It's going to encounter some resistance around 50,000 and back up at 60,000 is really where it wasn't able to get through last time. But what would be ideal is for it to break out, come back to retest this level because it wants to find out, is it happy being out the range or does it want to come back into the range? And so it usually will come back to test that level to see how it feels about, whether it wants to go back in the range or not. All right. So it's always like when you take your dog or your kid to the park and they're kind of, in the early days, they're exploring, they'll usually go a little bit further away, come back to you, check everything is okay, and then head out and do that kind of thing. A similar kind of behavior. So looking for it to test this and then potentially head out. So I've kind of mapped out two potential ways in which this would go. Yes, of course, it could struggle at 50. I'm just highlighting that in the longer run, I would expect it to continue to the upside. Okay, the other thing I want to highlight here in terms of the momentum indicators is that they are bullish. Okay, so this is something that most people, untrained speculators get wrong about these indicators. They start following the oversold or overbought, oversold approach here, which means that as soon as price enters that kind of oversold or overbought area, then it might be a guide or it might be a signal to start selling. And actually that's absolutely the worst way to do it. So first of all, when we start to approach the highs of these levels here, starting to enter that overbought area, that's usually a sign that the trend is now fully bullish and is actually now in place, is established. So first of all, as it reaches overbought, it's telling you it's now confirmed bullish as opposed to finishing up a bull run. And secondly, that can continue obviously forever. So I'm just highlighting here that this is breaking out. It's very bullish. Both of these indicators are bullish, are trending higher and supporting what price action is telling us here. Does that mean it's going to break out? It's not a guarantee. It's a breakout when price action confirms all of this by following through. So it's really important that we get signals and then we get a follow through from the market on that. So it should follow through. I would look for a break and a retest. I would even watch that on the 4-hour time frame. Potentially a break and a pullback could be a really good reward to risk setup here. If I can get in on a really good retest, putting my stop loss just underneath that, buying off a potential bullish candle that's retesting that level, my stop loss right here, I could turn this into a 10 to 1 or 20 to 1 trade setup. That's the way the more experienced traders would do it. They would look for a tighter entry, but a strong setup. Not just that's not the only thing they would do. They would look to see if the market produced an entry opportunity of that sort. They don't just assume it's going to happen. It would have to pull back. It would have to produce a bullish candle. It would have to show some good support there, and then that would provide a potential reward to risk. But then that would turn this into a very low risk opportunity, because you could put in 0.25% or 0.5% on that and potentially yield 10 or 20% on the return of that. Let's go to the monthly. So let's talk about, kind of what was this correction. I regret it, but I meant to do a video kind of around May and April. It was around about this time it started to head lower. I meant to do a video talking about why this was a correction and not a crash. It just feels like a crash because it's a big drop relative to the high. So everything's always subjective. The higher we go, if we fall and the moves are big, it feels like a crash. But why it was a correction? Okay, so it was overdue. Basically, the market had become very overextended. If you look here back to the very first Bitcoin bubble, that was it. So we remember when we heard all the noise and all the media, millionaires and billionaires overnight, that was this little move over here. And look at how much further it's gone this time around. So you can imagine how much money some people made then, how much they made now. Billionaires. Anyhow, it's managed to do a really nice correction back to that, back into the true value. So true value, you could see that. Sorry, just wanted to activate my whiteboard here so that I can go ahead and just draw on this. And let's just see what the color is. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so basically if you imagine that price, the market is made up of so many participants that it doesn't really know where true value is. It's figuring out where it goes. It's like, okay, oh, now's a good time. I think I want to buy and get in. Okay, now I think I want to get out. The market is kind of figuring it out. It's like a flock of birds trying to figure it out as it goes. And so without realizing it, it's actually orbiting what we could argue is true value. So true value is when it gets above it, then market participants are like, okay, I want to get out or I want to sell. And when it's below it, market participants want to get in and they want to buy and push it up. So we roughly have that. And so really what we're looking at here is, if we had to draw a line through this, is we're looking at kind of true value, something like this. And so the market has effectively come back down into these moving averages here, the 10 and 20, looking for true value. Okay, so it's not a guarantee, by the way, that it's going to turn here. What's interesting is that if it is in the future, if we're going to be here and we're going to look back and it did continue up, then this is usually where it will do the turning point. So it's kind of reverse engineering it. We're trying to imagine that if it is in the long run going to continue to go up, and there's no reason to think cryptocurrencies aren't here to stay. People are seeing them as a newer kind of a safe haven or alternative investment. I know that all the institutions that are very slow to change their ways are still dubious. And of course what they're doing is it's the same as with the MSCI Emerging Markets. They're going to get on the bandwidth much later, which is fine. But point is, crypto's here to stay. And Bitcoin and Ethereum are currently the grandfathers of it, so to speak. So the others will likely follow suit. It doesn't mean that we couldn't have a VHS Betamax scenario where 10 years from now, Bitcoin is kind of died and no one uses it. That is a possibility. It's not impossible. It's not likely, but it's not impossible. My point being, for now, it's a valid option for I guess, entrepreneurial, for the entrepreneurial investor / trader. But it carries with it, obviously, higher risk. Okay, so the more experienced traders and investors will be fine because they'll navigate it like they would any other instrument that is new. Okay, it has got some history, it's established, it's liquid. It's not really an issue here. Okay, point being. So let's go ahead and just let me wipe this out. Let me clear this up. And so really what I want to talk about is price action here. So price has come back down to this level and was potentially going to produce a bullish candle in June, didn't. Now it's July, we're almost at the end of July. We've produced an inside bullish candle. Okay, what I would really like to see is a close in the next couple of days above 40,000, just to kind of hook itself over that level and then that would be a good starting point for the next move to the upside. It is an inside candle, and so I want to be wary of that. We have broken the low down here. We're all good. This is a valid potential turning point if it is going to continue up. The next thing that I needed to do, ideally, so it could close above that, would be, to me, a tick in the box, is to see price now in August break the high. Okay, so to break the high above that, sorry, that's not a very perfect flat level, break the high above that, that to me would be nice to see that as a potential way for me to start to get in. Okay, and I've just spoken, obviously, prior to this on the daily, what I'd like to see on the daily, and that's the way in which I would see it unfold. So the reason I show you the monthly and the daily is because the daily is where my detailed plan would be. The monthly is really the bigger picture as to why this is this might then be the basis for a longer term recovery to the upside. There's a lot of evidence to support the idea that we might be still in the early stages of a really big bull market that's going to continue. We're due for a correction, I know, but there's a lot of evidence to show with continued stimulus and lots of people out there with lots of cash that there's no reason why the markets might, resume here and might continue to climb. We'll see. Alternatively, should this close below, that's not necessarily a no, but if it closes as a red or indecision candle, then I'm going to scrap it. And again, if in August the market fails to break above the high of July and then ends up coming down and breaking the low, then it just hasn't really finished yet. Then it obviously is still potentially wants to break through 30,000. If it breaks through 30,000, it's going to come back into these old highs, and that's fine. If that is the case, that's even better because it then means it's capable of recovering all the way up, and there's a lot more profits to be made if we come from the lows back up to the highs than if we do it from 40,000 up there. So all of those are nice potential opportunities there. And that's really it. So that, in other words, I'm just explaining why I also want to measure this in terms of Fibonacci. So for anyone who's potentially a Fibonacci user, just see this. It's coming back. It's perfect. This is in the zone. So this is between the 618 and the 382. It's perfect. This is a great place for it to turn around. And you can see that's solid. It really has respected that 50 fib level of support as well. Okay, so it's not just round numbers, but Bitcoin does tend to operate around round numbers for now, and that's fine. But level of support, testing off that 30,000, close above the 40,000, and then follow through. And the daily would be a good potential support, or it would be a good indication of that. And that is if we are likely to then return back up to those old highs around 60,000. Ultimately, if it's not really there, then it's not really there. But I looked in my weekly analysis, which you can see the videos of on this channel, and I'll put links of them in the in the videos above, somewhere up here in the corner. Then there are where I've said a lot of the other newer cryptos have all kind of come almost back down into the old lows. They're in a really good place to recover from there, and I can't really see them going much further. So that's really it. This is why I think that, yeah, this could end up being something. This could be, it's possible this could be the lowest point at which we'll see this for a while. It could start resuming its uptrend back up from this point. I am interested in your take on this, so please, if you've got a take or an opinion, no judgment, I'd love to hear it. I'm interested in a discussion. Put your comments down below. Thank you.